My name is Minister Kwame Mustafa. I'm with the Prison Voices SC of South Carolina, USA. I'm here in reference to Carmen, Free Carmen rights movement. This is a person who's been wrongfully convicted since 2003. There was a cold case in 2001, whereas someone got robbed and murdered in 2001. As a matter of fact, October 2001 is when this victim was robbed and murdered by two females. In 2003, fast forward, in July of 2003, a gentleman by the name of Nathaniel Hallman was about to get some sentence, some time in prison, but he wanted to negotiate with the prosecutors. So he said, hey, hold up a minute. If I tell you about a murder case, a robbery and murder case, will you cut my sentence down? And he wrote a statement. Matter of fact, he wrote three statements. The statements that he wrote is a reference to Iris Bryant, who he picked up the night of the murder. Iris Bryant told him that her and her cousin took the victim to a remote area, and in the remote area, her cousin sat in the back seat and she sat in the front seat. And her cousin shot the victim several times in the back. And once her cousin shot him several times in the back, she hopped out the car and shot him in through the windshield. And they hopped out the car, they robbed him, they took several $1,000s from him. Once they took the several $1,000s from this particular victim, they ran maybe half a mile wherever, and they called Nathaniel Hallman. So what ended up happening in regards to this particular night of murder, as Iris Bryant called Nathaniel Hallman, he dropped her off to her boyfriend, okay? Because she said she wanted to give her boyfriend some money. So once that took place, okay, he went on home and Iris Bryant called him back again, maybe about an hour or two later, and asked if he would come pick her up. And Nathaniel Hallman went back and picked her up again, okay? At that particular time, Nathaniel Hallman stated that Iris Bryant had a wig on, had some bloody clothes on, and she took all that stuff off and put it in the trash can, okay? And then from there, she asked if he would drop her off back at home or wherever she was staying at with her cousin. So Nathaniel dropped her off. Once he dropped her off, he went on home, okay? That was in the statement. Now these statements happen to be exculpatory statements, okay? Now to fast forward, understand these statements detail who killed this particular gentleman the night of October the 2001, okay? When Nathaniel Hallman gave the statement to the prosecutor, okay, the prosecutor went and questioned Iris Bryant, who was at the time in jail for a cocaine charge. As a matter of fact, a crack cocaine charge. She was in jail. So they questioned her, okay, and she gave several statements. She said yes, the first few statements she stated, yes, me and my cousin, okay, did this, okay? And then a few other statements she gave, she said, no, it wasn't my cousin, okay? It was Carmen Rice, who was in the back seat, who were her accomplice, okay? So as a result of that, the prosecutor, instead of picking up her cousin and questioning her cousin, the prosecutor picks up Carmen Rice in November of 2003. Now I'm reading all of this from out of the report, the exculpatory statements that Nathaniel Hallman, as well as the court transcripts, okay, that Iris Bryant gave, told Nathaniel Hallman the whole detail of it, okay? Now once Iris Bryant told the prosecutor, okay, that after 4 or 5 statements, she stated with her cousin, then she changed it up, okay? They went and picked Carmen Rice up in November 2003, and they charged, to fast forward, they charged Carmen Rice in April of 2005 for murder and armed robbery. Now, let's note several things here in this exculpatory statement. Let's take a look at this exculpatory statement here. Inside of the statement, you'll find that Carmen Rice's name was not even mentioned inside this whole statement, okay? Inside the statement, it was her cousin Tina Atika, Nikki, okay, as Iris Bryant was telling Nathaniel Hallman. Now, when Nathaniel Hallman picked up Iris Bryant the night of the murder, he had his friend with him, okay? He had a friend with him, okay? Now, the friend who was with him heard everything, okay? And all of these names is in the exculpatory statement. Now, the prosecutor had Iris Bryant as the main witness of this murder. When she finally, after 5 or 6 statements, confessed that, yes, I done it, she also lied and said that Carmen Rice done it. So what ended up happening from there, when they picked Carmen Rice up, she was trying to get bond. She never got bond. So to fast forward, April the 5th, during the court hearing, the trial hearing, okay, there was some ineffective system of counsel going on here. And this is with her attorney. Okay, this is with her attorney. She had 2 attorneys, okay? Attorney Christopher Hart, who presently is a state representative, okay, been a state representative for several years, and John Mobley was Carmen Rice's attorneys. Now, these attorneys had these exculpatory statements, but the question we ask, if they had these exculpatory statements detailing who killed this particular gentleman the night of October 2001, why didn't they disclose these statements to Carmen Rice? Why didn't they subpoena Nathaniel Hallman, okay, as well as the gentleman who was in the car with Nathaniel Hallman, listen at the statement? That was never done. Her attorneys, again, Attorney Christopher Hart and John Mobley, should have subpoenaed everyone that was in the exculpatory statements to court. In addition to that, her attorneys, who were paid over $30,000, they should have also put those statements into the court so the jury could have taken a look at those statements. But instead, they failed to do that. So as a result of that, this is called constitutional rights violation of due process to a fair trial. In addition to that, too, the prosecutor, as we found out during our investigation, the prosecutor knew that Iris Bryant was lying. Not only they knew that Iris Bryant was lying, but as we found out during our investigation, that Iris Bryant worked for the prosecutor as an informant, busting local drug dealers, okay? And we would assume that her cousin, Nikki Atika, also worked for the prosecutors. Because again, the question is, why didn't they even pick up Iris' cousin? They never picked her up, they never questioned her, they never even looked at her, never even called her anything. That's the big question. Why didn't they? So as a result, they did 2 DNAs on Carmen Rice, because inside the court transcript, the transcript stated that there was forensics, meaning hair and blood and other things on the back seat and the front seat, okay? Now, again, be mindful, Iris Bryant is the South Carolina state main witness, okay? Main witness that the prosecutor have here. Okay, given a false statements, the prosecutor knowing that she'd given a false statement, okay, saying that Carmen Rice was her accomplice, but yet though her cousin, but yet though the prosecutor as well as her attorneys never one time asked the court to do what? Do a DNA forensics on the cousin. Because had they did a DNA forensic on the cousin, then it would have matched all the hair and particles and everything in the back seat would have matched who? Would have matched your cousin, okay? Now, when you take a look at this whole scenario, there's a lot of constitutional violations. Again, let me repeat. They did 2 DNAs on Carmen Rice. No match. Now the question is asked there, if the DNA did not match Carmen Rice and she's supposed to have sat in the back seat, as a state main witness would say. Okay, this is a state main witness that the prosecutor told the jury that she's credible. Okay, in addition to that, the prosecutor lied to the jury because the judge asked the prosecutor, did you cut any deal with your key witness? And the prosecutor lied. They did cut a deal with her, okay? Not only did they cut a deal with her, do you know Iris Bryant? No, we don't know her. That's not true. Okay, history has it. Again, let me repeat, as I said earlier, that Iris Bryant worked for the prosecutor, busting local drug dealers, okay? So she has a history with the prosecutor. And this is a constitutional violation law also. We have constitutional laws, whereas the prosecutor must disclose to the jury, to the court, that yes, we do know this particular individual who is our main witness. So as we fast forward this case here, and we look at all the evidence that show that Carmen Rice is innocent, her attorneys, which is John Mobley, her attorney Christopher Hart, sit by and let the court convict her for life in prison without parole. Now we're looking at 21 years later, okay? 21 years later, we're talking about an innocent person who's been in prison for 21 years. At the time, she was 25, and at the time, her son was 5 years old when she was wrongfully snatched, wrongfully convicted by South Carolina prosecutor in Richland County, South Carolina. Now, this is a free Carmen Rice movement, but the reality is this is a movement to free all individuals who've been wrongfully convicted in South Carolina. Now you will find in South Carolina that South Carolina have 20-something state prisons, okay? 23 to 24 state prisons, all right? And 4 federal prisons, okay? So we're talking about a state that talk about democracy, that speaks about democracy, but yet though we have people who's been wrongfully convicted, and we have a mass incarceration rate that is extremely high, and especially amongst African Americans, okay? So this is a free Carmen Rice movement here. Now, we have went to the AG office, Attorney General office, once we discover and got her package, discover those exculpatory statements, because now, let me be clear about these statements that we're talking about, okay, that is exculpatory, okay? The exculpatory statements are statements that is written by someone who knows facts about what happened in a crime, in an incident, okay? Note this, Carmen Rice never knew anything about these statements. She found out about these statements in 2019. She found out about those statements in 2019, okay? She had no knowledge what those statements was until Prison Voices, which is myself and other folks who's working with me, talked to her about those statements in 2022. Okay, so in all actuality, she was clear about those statements in 2022 when we brought to her attention that those statements detail who killed this guy, and she told us that she had no idea that they even existed. Now let me make a note here. Those statements, those exculpatory statements, was recorded in her case history in October of 2004, okay? In October 2004, they was recorded in her case history. Okay, 2004. Be mindful, she was sentenced when? She was sentenced in April of 2005 is when she was sentenced. Okay, so those statements were there. Okay, so we can't, her attorneys cannot say, well, we didn't have enough time to subpoena X amount of people, okay, to prevent an innocent person coming in jail. And let me make a note about prosecutors. Prosecutor has a responsibility to seek justice. That's the responsibility of prosecutor. Defense attorneys has a responsibility to seek justice for their client. Okay? Neither one of them, whether it's a prosecutor in this particular case or whether it's her paid attorney, on both sides, they violated the Constitution on both sides. Her attorneys violated the Constitution, her due process of right to a fair trial, because they never disclosed those statements, which would have been very clear that she was innocent of the whole crime. The prosecutor violated because their job was to do what? To seek justice, and they never seek justice at all. They were corrupt. We're talking about some corrupt prosecutors. We're talking about Attorney John Meadows and Attorney Theodore Lumpkins, okay, who worked for South Carolina State Prosecutor in Richland County. These guys was totally corrupt. And this is called miscarriage of justice to the highest. A grievous miscarriage of justice to the highest. So this is a free Carmen rights movement for wrongful conviction. This movement here is centered around thousands of other people in South Carolina and other states who's been wrongfully convicted. There's a movement and there's a spirit in the air that something has to be put in place where these attorneys must be held accountable. Must be held accountable. When they have facts and evidence to justify that the person that they tried to prosecute did not commit the crime, they have a responsibility to do what? To seek justice. You're not supposed to just put an innocent person in prison because of the fact that you want to just resolve a case. There's nothing fair about that. You'll find inside of the transcript, the state brought in several people. The state brought several people in to justify their wrongful conviction, okay? And some of those wrongful people that they brought in to justify their case was convicted individuals who were locked up in jail already. The prosecutor went to jail, okay? Went to jail where Carmen was, okay? Went to jail where Carmen was and used these inmates to lie on Carmen. They say, listen, if you lie on her, you know, we might help you a little bit. Sign this right here. This is what the prosecutor did, okay? All right? Totally against the Constitution, okay? So we're talking about the statements that they have and their main witness, who is Iris Bryant, okay? They knew that Iris Bryant was lying. They go and get more statements from people who was already locked up and use them against Carmen. We're talking about people who Carmen never even knew. And let me give you a history on Carmen's record. Carmen was a single mother with a 5-year-old son. She was taking care of her father at the time, okay, taking care of her father, working security. She never even had a traffic ticket, not even a speeding ticket. So there was no, she had no profile. Iris Bryant, their main key witness testifying against Carmen, she had a record, a criminal record, 20 miles long. 20 miles long, okay? So, you know, we're looking at all of these facts, and it's really mind-boggling, very mind-boggling when you look at some of the evidence in the court system, okay? This particular gentleman shot pool the night that he got murdered. At the pool hall, inside the court transcript, they was asking Mr. Alton about how can you describe these individuals? Because these females came in waiting on the victim to get through shooting pool. So Mr. Alton Page, who was shooting pool with this gentleman, was questioned during trial. The question that they asked him, can you identify these females that was shooting pool the night that this gentleman got murdered, that the victim got murdered? He said, no, I cannot identify them. They had some orange on, this and that, but I can say to you that they were 2 to 3 inches shorter than me. Okay, 2 to 3 inches shorter than me. Now, how tall did Alton Page say that he was? Alton Page was 5'9". 5'9". He said, I'm 5'9", and they was 2 to 3 inches shorter than me. So 2 to 3 inches shorter would bring those females to 5'6" to 5'7". That be the case, how can that be possible to equate Carmen Rice, who is 4'11"? And she's been 4'11", from my understanding, all of her life. 4'11". From 5'6" to 5'7" to 4'11". So all the evidence and going to this DNA, which again, they never did no DNA on her cousin, who were her accomplice. No DNA whatsoever. And there's a fact and proof that forensics was in the back seat and in the front seat. They cut a deal with Iris Bryant. When you look at the deal that they cut with Iris Bryant, but yet though the court asked the prosecutor, did you cut any deal with your main witness? They say no. So if that be the case, if they never cut a deal, then how is it that someone like Iris Bryant be charged or get picked up, because she wasn't charged, get picked up for a murder case, lie on an innocent victim, okay, and get no time in prison? The only time that Iris Bryant got in prison, probably in jail, because she never went to prison, probably about 3 to 4 months. Okay, and the charge was non-violent charge is what they gave it. A non-violent charge. There wasn't no murder, there was no robbery. Non-violent charge, and she got less than 4 months, okay, in jail. Note, her cousin was never questioned, never picked up. That in itself is very problematic, very problematic. Those exculpatory statements, once everyone, the followers, read and look at these statements, you would see the same thing that I'm saying, that this was egregious miscarriage of justice. This was totally corruption. Now, when we took these facts, these exculpatory statements to the AG office, Attorney General office, now you would think that South Carolina Attorney General office would be about justice. That's what you would think, that would be about justice. But I would say they're not about justice. Because if they were about justice, they have enough experience in the office to know that if you're looking at some exculpatory statements and you're looking at the facts, the same thing that we're looking at. Because my experience is political science, as well as a paralegal in sociology. So I'm very keen when it comes down to the facts, okay? We're talking about law here, okay? That's what we're talking about, law. So when you look at the evidence here, you will draw the same conclusion that I'm drawing, that yes, an innocent person have done 21 years because the facts speak for itself. So we're talking about statements that was, one, never disclosed by her attorneys, which that's ineffective assistance counsel, which is a constitutional violation, as well as prosecutors, ineffective assistance counsel, which is constitutional violation. All of these attorneys' license should have been taken and should be taken when all of this is done and said. We don't think that there's never been anyone exonerated. As a matter of fact, the record speaks for itself. There's never been one person exonerated in the state of South Carolina for a wrongful conviction by state prosecutors. Never been. So we're saying to the public, let this be the first right here, that Carmen Rice is being released from prison. Let Byron Gibson, Solicitor Byron Gibson, okay? Solicitor Byron Gibson in Richland County is the head solicitor. This is where this egregious miscarriage of justice has took place in 2005, this wrongful conviction. Solicitor Byron Gibson's office. So we asking Solicitor Byron Gibson today, the family is asking him today, the citizen is asking him today to stop what you're doing, take a look at this particular wrongful conviction. You have organizations who have already, you have organizations who have confronted you with Carmen Rice and other people who's been convicted and did time that they shouldn't be doing. Stop and take time out and let's seek justice for the innocent. You stated that you're dealing with murder cases. Yes, murder cases is important, but what's more important is innocent people who has done time in prison for no reason whatsoever out of your office. Out of your office. When you ran for office, you stated that you're about seeking justice. Well, now not only is it time for you to seek justice, but it's time for you to leave your name behind. Leave your name behind in the sense of being the first person, first solicitor in South Carolina, exonerating Carmen Rice and follow other innocent individuals. In addition to that, what needed to take place in South Carolina, in your office, is to create an integrity unit. An integrity unit, what that would do, an integrity unit would investigate other cases of wrongful conviction, okay? And liberate and release those individuals who have been wrongfully convicted. This must be done now. So this is a free Carmen Rice movement. And once that takes place, the movement continue to free other individuals who have been wrongfully convicted by the state prosecutor, who's been wrongfully convicted about ineffective assistance of counsel. Now, people like Attorney Christopher Hart, people like Attorney John Mobley, who were her defense attorney, folks like Prosecutor John Meadows, who's supposed to be the friend of the AG office, the Attorney General office, and we think that's one reason they didn't even move on it. But this ain't about no friendship here, it's about seeking justice, okay? And Attorney Theodore Lumpkins. These guys' law license should be taken, okay? It should be taken, because justice is justice. When you held your right hand up for oath to seek justice, that's what you're supposed to be doing. But they have not seek justice. So we're asking that this movement be a movement and not a moment, but seeking justice for Carmen Rice and seeking justice for those other wrongful convictions. We asking that we demand that Byron Gibson put in his office an integrity unit so he can address and investigate any other wrongful conviction. This is the movement, and we will not stop until this movement becomes a reality, because it affects family. When you have family members taken wrongfully, it tears down, it breaks down family. Carmen Rice only had one son. He was 5 years old when they wrongfully snatched her away from him. 5 years old. Where is he at today? That's a good question. That's a good question. Rumor has it that he's fighting some form of addiction, because all the Carmen family has pretty much transitioned. She has a few cousins here and there, but the reality is we rely on the system to be fair. It hadn't been fair. And again, South Carolina has a high mass incarceration rate, okay? And especially when it comes down to African American, black folks.